Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to take a look back at the Kickoff Clash tournament. Both the Eastern and Western regions of course have their own tournaments, so we'll talk about both of them. We'll start with the Eastern region and then we'll talk about the Western region. We're not going to talk about it necessarily match to match like I would normally in a normal week. A lot of games this weekend. I kind of want to just talk more about the broad strokes of the tournament, kind of talk about the teams themselves and kind of what they did. What they did well, what they didn't do well, all of that kind of stuff. So let's start with the APAC tournament. That one obviously finished first. It started second, but it finished first. Obviously only 4 teams, but definitely an interesting tournament, of course. Let's throw up the bracket for the tournament. This was the final bracket. My pick'ems were nowhere near accurate for this one. I had both the Shanghai Dragons and the Hangzhou Spark in the finals, and neither of those two teams even made the finals. So my bracket got boomed pretty much immediately. I think I got one game right, which was the Shanghai Seoul first round match. I got 3 points off of that one, and then I got 0 points, I think, the entire rest of this bracket. It was an abysmal showing from yours truly. Very much an embarrassing showing in my APAC. Oh, that's not true. I got 2 points from the Seoul Dynasty winning in the lower bracket, and that was it. The rest of the bracket, I just got flat goose eggs, so not a great look from me. But this tournament, of course, saw the Seoul Dynasty win 4-0 victory over the Philadelphia Fusion. What an incredible, incredible moment, of course, the Seoul Dynasty have never won any type of tournament before this one. This is their first ever tournament win, first ever title of any kind. They obviously have some players with some really big name players, most notably Prophet, as well as Smurf, 2 players who obviously have some success winning Overwatch League titles in the past, but obviously the Seoul Dynasty team never able to do it. So they finally get a title under their belt. Been a long push. The sad thing is that, of course, the Philadelphia Fusion walk out of this still without one. Another second place finish for the Fusion. Hopefully Carpe will get something by the time his career is over. He has been in the league for too long and been doing this for far too long at the high level to not have anything under his belt at this point in time. But hopefully soon the Fusion will be able to pull something out. This really was quite an impressive run, of course. The Fusion and the Dynasty, the 3 and the 4 seed, the bottom 2 teams in this tournament. Really interesting to see that these 2 teams took very different paths, obviously, to get here. The Fusion, round 1 upset over the Spark. Then they beat the Dragons 3-0. Dynasty lost the first game to the Dragons. Had to 3-0 the Spark in the lower bracket. Then had to beat the Dragons the same day that they had to play the Fusion. 3-2, really close series of the Shanghai Dragons in that lower bracket final, and then move on and beat the Fusion in the grand finals. And yeah, it was a one-sided series. It was a 4-0 win for the Seoul Dynasty. I think the Dynasty match up very well with the Fusion, whereas I think the Fusion match up well with the Dragons. That's kind of what we're seeing, really. That's kind of the trend that we are seeing in this Eastern region, is that the Fusion are pretty good against the Dragons. They seem to be the weakness for the Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai Dragons have struggled against them twice now. They have taken a map off of the team yet this season, so definitely an interesting look there, and an interesting little statistic there. So it'll be kind of interesting to see kind of how the Fusion Dragons matchup goes the rest of the season. But this really was a huge moment, of course, for a Dynasty team that has been so close so many times. They've obviously, look at this team back in 2020 and even last season, where we thought they were a strong team, they were a good team. They just couldn't get some stuff together. They just struggled in certain moments. They struggled getting to those playoff games. It really was tough for this team at times. 2020, they got reverse swept in the Melee finals, and then they lost in the grand finals to the Shock. So finally, the Dynasty gets something under their belt, and it was a very impressive performance from them, so definitely good on them. If you missed either of the matches between the Dragons and the Dynasty, I highly recommend you check those out. This rivalry, I think, right now is the best one in the league. These are two teams that, for the past several seasons now, have really kind of been punching at each other. The Dragons have been the better of the two teams for the majority of their matchups, but the Dynasty love to play spoiler, obviously. They beat the Dragons in the playoffs in 2020 to go to the Grand Finals, and then they beat them this time around and win the Kickoff Clash here in 2022. So definitely a huge weekend for the Seoul Dynasty. Incredibly impressive run from them. Having to run the gauntlet, beating the Spark, beating the Dragons, beating the Fusion. Definitely big props to them. When it comes to kind of, I haven't talked about the Hangzhou Spark yet. Definitely a disappointing performance from them. They won one map against the Fusion and then got swept by the Dynasty. Didn't look all that great. Didn't really leave me that inspired, that confident. Definitely not a team that I feel great about based on what we saw. I think they should be fine. We'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting to kind of see how the Spark bounce back from this tournament. They obviously have never really been a team to find success in the playoffs. You think about Countdown Cup in 2020, they just got rolled by Shanghai when they made it. Last year, Junjiao's qualifiers, they just fell off and didn't even make it, losing to New York, who were not very good. So the Spark are definitely interesting. I was not impressed with them this weekend. I think they were my least favorite team of the weekend. I thought they had a very weak performance and overall just did not look very good. And I definitely think that is a huge problem when you are a team. When you're a team as good as the Hangzhou Spark have been so far, it's pretty disappointing to see that kind of performance here. But I think this is a really tough APAC region. These teams are really good, and so I don't take too much away from them, but really impressive things in this APAC tournament. Seoul Dynasty, I think, aren't necessarily the best team in the region. They were just the best team this weekend. They were the best team, really not even the best team this weekend. They were the best team yesterday, right? Seoul versus Shanghai was about a 50-50. Seoul wins that 50-50, and then they go on and win against the Fusion, right? It's the type of thing where they happened to be the best team yesterday. Any other day, maybe the Dragons win that series. Any other day, maybe the Fusion then play the Dragons in the finals, and maybe the Dragons get second and the Fusion get first, and the Dynasty get third. Maybe the Dragons get first, Fusion get second. Definitely one of those things where it's an any day type of thing. I'm definitely curious to see how this region kind of goes as time goes on, but definitely an exciting match in that lower bracket finals in this tournament. Very interesting. So Eastern region, all in all, pretty good. Western region was quite a doozy as well. You can kind of see what happened here. Very interesting bracket, of course. The big surprise, the Atlanta Reign making it to the upper bracket finals. Making it as far in reality as the lower bracket finals, the final game they made it to. But really impressive showing from them. Obviously, beating the Florida Mayhem, beating the San Francisco Shock, and then just falling to the Gladiators and the Dallas Fuel. San Francisco Shock did not win this tournament, of course, as you can see. Lost to the, had to reverse sweep the Justice, fall to the Atlanta Reign, and then they beat the Houston Outlaws, and then fell to the Dallas Fuel in a pretty convincing fashion. But the obvious champions, as you can see, we have the Los Angeles Gladiators. What a performance from them in this tournament. They looked absolutely unbelievably good. They were such an impressive team. Potifon looked incredible. Kevster looked incredible. Reiner looked amazing. Funny Astro and Shu popped off. It was a really good weekend for the LA Gladiators. And certainly, threw off some of those kind of doubters after their, two reverse sweep losses to the Shock and the Fuel earlier in the Kickoff Clash qualifiers. Having Kickoff Clash and Countdown Cup is going to mess me up. I'm so glad we're moving to Midseason Madness, and I don't have to worry about getting those two mixed up. I have done it so many times. You have no idea. Bothers me every time. Anyway. But this is a huge win for the Gladiators. And it's a huge win for kind of showing that this team really is legit, right? They lost one map the entire tournament, right? They had 3 of the Outlaws, beat the Fuel 3-1, 3 of the Rain, and then 4 of the Fuel in the finals. It was a very good weekend from them. They had an incredible, incredible run, and I think you have to look at them right now as arguably the top team in the entire league, not even just the region. They weren't challenged in this Western region. Realistically, they were not challenged. They rolled over their opponents. They dominated this tournament, and they are exactly the team that we thought they would be. When I put them at 1 in my power rankings at the beginning of the season, it was because this was the team that I saw. A team with incredible potential, with really good players in Kevster and Potifon and Ons in that DPS line. Reiner and Space can play anything you need in the tank line. And then you have a really strong support line with Funny Astro and Shu and Skewed. They were able to win the Countdown Cup last season, and if the roster is even better this season, I had a feeling that this is a team that was going to really be able to put in some really, really big results and do some really big things. And they delivered on that in this tournament. And so, huge props to them. One of my favorite storylines from this tournament was kind of after both tournaments ended, we kind of had both regions were really looking at kind of the 2 players in particular who are both like stars, some of the best in the game, and historically some of the best, whose histories are so wildly different, right? In the APAC region, everybody is talking about how Prophet is the greatest of all time. Look at his achievements, Apex Season 4 champion, Overwatch League, 2018 Stage 1 champion, Grand Finals champion, second place in 2020 Grand Finals, runner-up in the 2020 main Melee, top 4 finish in the Countdown Cup last year, and now another title with the, Kickoff Clash tournament. He's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. He has been consistent. He's never dipped. That was the conversation around Prophet. And it was really like, this is the Prophet moment. And Smurf had a great tournament, obviously, as well. And a lot of people were talking about him and highlighting him as well. But really, when it came to purely just highlighting individual performances, Prophets was the one that people were looking at. Then with the NA, Western bracket, it was really about Potifon at the end. But it was kind of this different narrative of, here's this guy, Potifon, who is really a legend in the Overwatch scene. He might be a rookie in the Overwatch League, but he has been around for years, obviously. He is 18 now, but when he was 15, doing the World Cup qualifiers in Thailand, he was dominating. He was playing, obviously, just absolutely dominating players, playing incredibly, played really well in contenders, but he was just too young. And so 2020 comes around, Valorant becomes a big thing, and Potifon recognizes, hey, I can't play Overwatch professionally. The contender scene's bad. I may as well go to Valorant, where I can at least make a name for myself and participate in the scene. Goes to Masters, right, on an underdog team, does really well, and then retires from Valorant and rejoins Overwatch. And had a lot of people doubting whether or not he actually could make that move. There's a famous copy pasta about him. I mean, if you saw his interview at the end of his match, he got very emotional and kind of said, like, people online doubted him. And, keep in mind, this guy's 18. Like, he is a kid, right? Like, he is 18. People are doubting an 18-year-old, someone who, is recently 18, but whether or not he could still play and whether or not he could still perform. And he may not have been the MVP of the Grand Finals like Prophet was. That honor went to Funny Astro. Potifon still had some incredible moments. He popped off. He improved greatly as this stage progressed. And so to me, I look at Potifon and I just go, look, you cannot tell me that this guy is not a legend of the game. And he was rightfully getting the praise he deserves for what he has done, what history he has brought to the game of Overwatch. And just his greatness is undeniable, even at such a young age, even as someone who realistically, most Overwatch League fans may not be familiar with what he's done. He is a legend of the game, and this was kind of the tournament staple of, this dude left Overwatch, went to Valorant for like a year and a half, comes back, and in his first major tournament back, wins. And it's obviously it's not an individual thing, it's a team thing, but it's just the thing that shows you, like, he is an elite player. He deserves to be there. He played, and he played well, and he had a huge impact on the game. And I think it really is something to look at, and someone that you can look at and just recognize that he is a very, very, very talented player. and someone who I think is going to be one of the best players to watch. And just looking at his glow up this season in the first tournament, I can't wait to see how he ends up once the season reaches its conclusion. I think he's going to be absolutely incredible throughout the entire rest of his career. And this season, we're going to see him really be one of the best in the business. Obviously, this NA bracket was huge. There were a lot of things to talk about. So I'll kind of pick some things to really talk about. Obviously, Toronto, Washington were the two teams to get out the quickest. Washington almost beat the Shock. That was a pretty big moment. Reverse sweep, unfortunately, and then they fell to the Mayhem. So I'm not really disappointed in the Justice. Obviously, they played pretty well, and they put up a good fight in their first matchup. I'd actually say Toronto underperformed more because they got swept by Dallas and then lost to Houston. Of course, they lost to Houston off of the gargantuan efforts of Pelican just dominating on Coliseo. That final fight for Pelican was one of the most absurd fights I've ever seen. One of the highlights of the tournament. If you have not seen it, it's all over Reddit. I'll try to, if I remember, I'll try to put a link to the one of the clips or something in the description, or maybe even just throw it on this video here, so you guys can check it out. But I mean, it was an absurd play. It was such an incredible moment from Pelican. Definitely a huge kind of thing there. The Fuel played very well, obviously, making it all the way to the grand finals in front of their home crowd. It was awesome to have fans and get to see this tournament in person. I wish I could have been there, of course, but I don't live in Texas, so I didn't go. But it was really awesome just to see that. It's always nice. It was nice to see it at the Battle for Texas at the beginning of the season. It's nice to see it here. Cannot wait for the Toronto tournament because that'll be the first time we see the Overwatch League in Canada, which will be awesome to see that. And I'm excited for when we get that. Atlanta Reign obviously played above expectations. I don't think people expected them to play as well as they did. Obviously, it's funny to me because the way this tournament finished, the top four were in order. It was Gladiators 1, Fuel 2, Reign 3, Shock 4, which happens to be exactly where I had those four teams in my preseason power rankings in the Western region. So that validated me a little bit. Maybe I do know a thing or two about what I'm talking about here on this channel. Maybe I'm not just a complete moron who just spews nonsense onto this website because I can and no one stops me from doing it. Maybe I actually do at least know a little bit of something about what I'm doing and what I'm talking about. But who cares? I don't know anything about what I'm talking about, guys. Anyway, so it was a really, really impressive performance from the Atlanta Reign. I thought they looked very good. They looked cleaned up, like significantly improved from their weaker performances against Gladiators and the London Spitfire from last weekend. I think what we see now is the Gladiators are we're just truly dominant. Obviously, we saw them pull out a lot of like Reinhardt looks, Winston looks, Doomfist looks. They played a lot of different looks. They didn't really even play Zarya, and so it's kind of the thing of we all thought Zarya was the really dominant meta, and when Dallas played it, yeah, it is, and they were really, really good. But the Gladiators just played in such a smart way. They were incredibly kind of meticulous the way they played. Their coordination was incredible. There were some amazing plays that I remember in the finals that I was just blown away. Like, Dallas didn't play poorly in the finals. The Gladiators were just so good. They just, every time Dallas made even one little mistake, the Gladiators punished them for it. And so it was just all around a really, really, really good tournament. And I really, really loved it. Obviously, Mayhem and Houston had pretty good performances, better than Mayhem a little bit worse than I expected, but the Outlaws, I thought, actually played pretty well. I thought they were the weakest team in this region coming into this tournament. I did not like the way they played. I thought they were too one-dimensional, but I thought they actually played pretty well. They tried some new looks. Nothing I thought too incredible or too mind-blowing and impressive, but generally speaking, there were some decent looks, and they looked pretty good. And I thought, especially Pelican, the way he kind of popped off and had some really good carry moments was really good and telling for this team. And it's nice to see. So it's been a very nice tournament to kind of get to really see how the game is evolving with Overwatch 2. I'm really excited for the Midseason Madness because we get two things that I'm excited about. One is we get to see the new meta. We'd see the Zen kicks and potentially Sojourn stuff, so that'll be fun to see. We also are going to get to see, of course, our first cross-regional play, and so we'll get to see, maybe it'll be the Gladiators and the Dynasty, maybe it'll be the Fuel and the Dragons, who knows right now, but we'll get some cross-regional play, which I think is really cool for the mid-season tournament. Obviously, that was kind of the goal back in 2020. I didn't get to do that because of COVID, but now, with the way that this season's going, we get to get that type of stuff, and so that's exciting. That's fun. I'm really excited for the mid-season madness and to see where teams are at and really see which region looks better, because it's really interesting to look at the Western region right now where, the Gladiators and the Fuel really kind of seem to be in a league of their own right now. They are just that good, and they might be better than everybody else in this region. And then you have the Dynasty and the Dragons and the Fusion, who seemingly are pretty strong and pretty solid in that APAC region. But how do they rank up? How do they stack up against these really good Western region teams? We don't know yet, but that's what's exciting. I think that's why the midseason madness for me is so exciting to think about, because we have to get the Hawaii connection, and maybe it's not as interesting as it would be if it was an in-person tournament. But we get cross-regional play, and so by the mid-season point, we can kind of make those accurate predictions. I can make a power ranking of all of the regions together, which is something that will be pretty interesting. So I'm excited, to say the least. I'm incredibly excited with Midseason Madness. So definitely some big moments to look ahead to, but still, of course, we have a week off next week, so get some videos going up, probably some power rankings for both the regions, and maybe some other stuff as well, which we'll figure out as we go. But that is going to be all for me for today. Let me know your thoughts on this tournament in the comments down below. Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Were you disappointed by anything? I'd love to hear from you down below, but that's going to be all from me for today. Thank you all once again. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.